Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where as promised, we have completed our burn. We have 91 meters per second left in these fuel tanks, and we are on our way out of the Kerbal system. Now, if we auto warp, we might not be out of the way, out of the Kerbal system, on the way out of the Kerbal system. Words are very hard, apparently. Okay, so let's manually warp our way on out of here, so that hopefully our trajectory is not truncated, because that is very annoying when that happens. So let's just get out of here. We should hop back in speed to 50x. I believe now we are in the sphere of influence of the sun. So that looks good. At this point, we need to head over to... Oh, wow, we're very, very close on the ascending-descending node. This is not going to be much of a inclination change, but we can have it be something like... That's very sensitive. Okay. About like... Wow. This is changing a lot. This is good enough. This is good enough. We'll just lock to that node, and we will very painfully slowly turn. Our turning will get better as we burn off more of this fuel. We've got a lot of fuel here. Probably too much fuel. No probably about it. We've got too much fuel. But it's absolutely fine. Far better to have too much than too little. So that is absolutely great. We are going to be in position for this burn shortly. It'll be a 3-second burn, and it'll burn exactly 10% of the fuel remaining in these two side tanks. So that's exciting. Our transfer burn, of course, will be pretty significant. And then our braking burn, our inclination turn burn. Wow, words are very hard this morning. Okay. Apparently I cannot speak this morning. Perfect. That's absolutely wonderful. Well, we're going to warp on forward. It's about a 90-day warp until our inclination change, and that'll be absolutely fine. And of course, we'll bring this thing down and use it to generate carbon dioxide, and that should mean that we're completely self-sufficient at this point. We're very close to self-sufficient right now. If Jeb and Bill were there and not in, you know, a dehydrated fetal position right now, if they were in that state, we would be very, 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 very close to being self-sufficient in terms of our life support anyway, but we're not quite there because we were very slightly negative on our carbon dioxide. We just weren't quite generating enough carbon dioxide. So this will fix that problem. We're down to 20 seconds. 10 and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, just going to get this last little bit. This is good enough. That'll do the trick. So we'll put ourselves into kill rot at this point. Apparently our target got cleared. That's exciting. So now the question is, where do we have to burn in order to raise our periapsis at the right time? So we know that we were in a kind of awkward... in a kind of awkward transit timing. Words are very difficult today. Wow. What is the word I'm looking for? Transfer window. That's what we're looking for. We're in a bad transfer window right now. And if we want to be in a better transfer window, actually over here is not so bad. So let's just back this off a little bit, a little less, and delay this burn slightly longer. Yeah. About right there. That seems decent. Not perfect, I'm sure, but decent. And so coming in here, we can see we'd want to be going in this direction. This is a prograde, so that looks good. If we wanted to dial this in, which we do, we want to bring this in quite significantly. Why did it start going out there? That's interesting. I have to assume this is a timing thing. Okay. Let's see about tweaking this timing ever so slightly then. Maybe about here? Maybe. I mean, it would do. We've got enough fuel. So if we have to do this, we can. But I would very much prefer, and is this going retrograde? It is. This is currently retrograde. So we want to bring it in a bit more like this, although probably a little bit more prograde than that. We're going to have a pretty hefty inclination change to do here, which we can work on and get it closer here. So it would be something kind of like that, and just bringing this right on in, a little bit better inclination. We're going to need to fix our inclination anyway, pretty much no matter how we handle this, but that looks like a pretty good encounter there. The inclination will need a little bit of an adjustment, but that looks good. So let's go ahead and lock to that. We'll have way more fuel than we need, but that's okay. As I've said many, many times when playing KSP, I would much rather have too much fuel and be a little bit wasteful on that than to have too little fuel and be really wasteful with it, having to either completely redo the flight or do a servicing mission, which is a lot more expense. So that's absolutely fine, and we're going to be dropping these side tanks quite early in this burn. But the burn is going to be in 1 year and 16 days, so it's going to take quite a long time for us to warp that far. So I'm not going to make you sit through that. We'll be back once we're close to the end of this warp. Okay, so here we are much closer to the end of the warp, and we'll be arriving there shortly. As we can see, we're slightly off of our node, but that's fine. I'm not terribly concerned about it. We've got a minute, and we'll just get a little bit of turning done here. There we go. About 40 seconds now. And we're about right on the node. So let's warp forward a little bit faster. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, so we're going to be watching this fuel. I want to make sure that our staging is correct here. Yes, it is. So we're going to be ditching these fuel tanks as soon as they're empty, which they're not empty yet, but we're going to be dropping the weight. Definitely going to be a little bit yet. But I don't want to physics warp this area until we're clear of these tanks. Then we can physics warp the rest of this burn. Okay, the tank is dry. That was awkward. Okay, there we go. Cool. I don't know why I had to stage that twice, but whatever. It's fine. So those fuel tanks are gone. That'll boost our thrust to weight, and now we're burning these fuel tanks. And then, of course, we've still got all of this fuel in here, which is significant, for sure. So at this point, whoa! This moves a lot when we physics warp it now. And I guess that's because these are not strutted together here and here. But these are strutted together. That makes things a little awkward then. The good news is we're not going to have too many more big burns. So maybe we just deal with it. That may be the best call here, is just we don't physics warp it. We just wait. We play it patient. I think that's the way to go. So with that in mind, we've still got about 450 meters per second. Now, we're probably not going to absolutely nail this particular maneuver. It doesn't matter. We just need to get close enough. We'll get our inclination change once we get there. The retrograde burn is going to be about the same, largely no matter what. But we do need to make sure that we are going in a prograde direction here. So this direction is the way to go. We do not want to be coming in this direction. That would be bad. And if we came in this direction, that would also be bad. We want to be coming in this direction. So that's our goal here. We've got about a minute and 40 seconds left on this burn. So it's definitely going to take some time. We can definitely see our inclination isn't perfect. No doubt about that, but it's pretty close, actually. So everything looks good there. And we can also currently see that our base is in darkness at this moment, but that'll be very different by the time we get there. So we'll choose our time that we go down. We will go down in daylight, and that looks absolutely fine for now. So this is our major burn that we need to do here. We'll need to do a braking burn at Duna. I expect that to be a similar burn, but probably a little bit shorter. And this is absolutely fine for now. So we're going to be burning off a very significant portion of this fuel, for sure. I don't know if we're quite going to burn all of it. We should probably have this guy be pinned open. There we go. And the reason I want that pinned open is because eventually we're going to need to undock that. That's not going to happen through the staging system because we had to have this docked in because of the orientation that we were doing this. So that's absolutely fine for now. We've got about 90 meters per second left here. What's our thrust to weight? 0.19. Okay, yeah, that's really low. That'll be rising, of course, as we burn off this fuel. We've already burned a very significant chunk of the fuel that we have for this stage. We burned, what, probably slightly over half of it at this point? Probably close to half. Maybe not quite half. Okay, we've just got a little bit left on this burn, and I'm cutting the burn at this point, and we can see, okay, yep, we want to be very cautious here. So just bringing this in. This is going to move very quickly as it comes in. Okay, I'm going to thrust limit us down to 0.5%. There we go. And we're just going to bring in this last little bit here. We want to hit this quite accurately if we can. We'll see how accurate we get it. It's looking pretty accurate. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. So in terms of the inclination, we'll find out what that ends up looking like. We'll want to come in about here. So 283 days. I'm going to quick save here in case something goes really weird with our warp. We can see we should be at 107 kilometers, somewhere around there. And I'm going to try to auto warp to here. It might change, and we'll see by how much. 183? It's fine. We'll deal with it. So I'm not going to be too concerned about that right now. And we'll just warp this right on in. So we're going to need to, of course, do our braking burn here. That's the next step. And then after that, we're going to need to do our inclination change, which I don't think is going to be very significant, but there will be some inclination change. We got the inclination pretty close, but it's not perfect. So we've got about another 100 days of warp time here, but everything is looking great at this time. We can see we're definitely coming in, and our orbit will be crossing over. So a braking burn down here is going to be what? Like probably 600 meters per second, something like that. So about half of the remaining DV we've got here. We'll see. We've got a lot of DV in this still. Okay, so now we're in system. That looks good. We'll add a maneuver here, and that's going to be our braking burn. So I want to bring this down to be pretty low, lower than what we had initially. So we're just going to have this be a periapsis of about, I'm angling for about 55 kilometers here. Maybe even a little lower, like 51. Yeah, something about like that. So we'll lock to that node, and it'll take us a little bit of time to turn, but of course, since we just burned a decent chunk of fuel, our turn times are getting more reasonable. I'm not going to call them reasonable, but they're more reasonable. I'm also noticing that these are all very offset from each other. So that's a bug. We'll see if it causes us problems. If it does, we can just rehydrate one of our Kerbals and go fix it. That is a theoretical option, because they shouldn't have been dehydrated, at least when they were. It's possible that they should have been dehydrated by this point. And specifically, they wouldn't have died due to lack of water at this point. Or I use the term died loosely, right? These are Kerbals. They curl up like water bears in our headcanon anyway. So at this point, I think that they would have probably run out of maybe food, because we can't both be producing oxygen and food at the same time with their amount of carbon dioxide production. So it is possible at this point. We just don't really have a way of knowing because the mod didn't correctly simulate it. So I don't know whether they're supposed to be dead or not at this point, so I'm just assuming that at this point they're in their dried out husk state, right? So that's absolutely fine. This is, of course, a bug, and this happens occasionally. I do plan on removing these structures, so this isn't a long-term problem, but we'll see if this is actually a significant problem or not. Okay, let's warp on forward, and we are going to be coming in to our periapsis. Here is Duna. Oh, right. This is a 1 day long burn because our thrust limiter is a problem. Let's get that fixed, and let's just continue to fall towards Duna. Building up a bunch of speed here. And we're just going to park ourselves in a nice low orbit. Nice, low, and equatorial. That's the goal. Now, as far as all of this goes, I don't know. Has it adjusted our height at all? No, height is the important thing. So the offset of these wheels shouldn't matter all that much. Like the horizontal offset here shouldn't matter all that much, as long as they're all at the same height, which they appear to be. But that is definitely a bug that those are moved. We can fix it, but it may not matter. So that's what we're going to go with for now. So we're about 30 seconds away from this burn. And that looks good. It's going to be about 700 meters per second. Okay, that's fine. Not a concern in the slightest. So we've got about 20 seconds here. Let's work forward a little further. We're right on the burn. And 2-1-0 mark. Okay. So we're slowing right on down here. And we should be entering orbit pretty soon here. We can see how much our Duna escape is getting pushed back. Excellent. And we determined we didn't want to physics warp this. But I didn't catch when this event occurred. That is something that can happen with time warping with these sorts of delicate parts sometimes. But yeah, I don't think I'm all that concerned about it. While we're waiting for this burn, this is our last, like, extensive burn other than our deorbit burn. So let's just extend out these wheels at this point. There we go. And then the next question is, are we going to land close enough to the base that we need to turn on no crash damage? Well, we know that no crash damage doesn't actually harm us that much when we're landing these, because we know that the Sky Crane is very effective. We compensated for the weight of this when we set this all up, so it should, in theory, be fine. In theory. If we land extremely closely, then we would probably need to turn on no crash damage and unbreakable joints, which is unfortunate. I would prefer not to land with that on, because I'd like these things to be able to break. Maybe what we should do is just make a save before we do the landing, and then just go for it without it on, and if it's a problem, then we can do it again with it on. And that way we know approximately what our landing should look like. That's a thing we could definitely do. But for now, we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. We need to complete this burn. We've got about 1 minute left in it, and we can see our amount of fuel in these tanks definitely getting down there. And we're going to have to do an orbital adjustment, actually 2 orbital adjustments, because we need to change our inclination and we need to change our we need to change our apoapsis as well. So that'll all be fine. No major issues there. I wish we could physics warp this, but I just don't trust the structural integrity of this at this point. So there is that. I think we're going to have some pretty significant crackening. So that, of course, means that we're going to have to get this thing in a state where it can start making its own vehicles and other bits and bobs, right? It's going to have to start being able to manufacture its own modules, essentially. And we're going to have to transition this from being wheel-based to being non-wheel-based. So those are the next major projects for our outpost here. I'm going to go ahead and stop this burn at this point. We've overshot it a little bit. We need to take this over to prograde. which we can physics warp our turns. That's absolutely fine. This is in the atmosphere, and we don't want it to be in the atmosphere. So we're not exactly stopping at prograde, but there we go. This is good enough. We'll just do it like that. That looks great. So let's add a maneuver here. Actually, I'm not sure when the apoapsis, or rather, when the ascending and descending node is for Ike. We should check that. Because Ike is in a perfectly equatorial orbit and is a fantastic reference point for us. So we set this as a target. Okay, this looks good. So we can do an inclination change first. We need to go the other way. And this is going to be... Wow, I cannot click that. Okay, there we go. Now I overshot it. Somewhere around there. Looks good. So aligned to that node, 21.3 meters per second. That is not very significant. Okay. So we're going to continue to work through the fuel in these side tanks. It's definitely going to be gone as part of our deorbit burn. No doubt about that. So we can physics warp while we're turning, we just can't physics warp while this engine is active. And that's going to be a little awkward for our landing, but it's okay. We'll just get into position and we'll land this next episode. And hopefully we won't have any issues with crackening, but we very well might. I would not be surprised if we have crackening issues. So let's get into position for this burn, and we're about a minute away right now. I'm going to physics warp here because we're a bit off on our angling. 45 seconds. 30 seconds. We're now good on our angling. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, we'll call that good enough. That should be fine on the inclination. So at this point, we are at 0.0, and we want to head over to the periapsis and adjust our orbit one last time before we start bringing this thing actually down. We just want to circularize our orbit at around the 51 kilometer mark, approximately. Now, this is good enough. I'm going to change the timing on it slightly, though, if I can grab it. About there. Nope, that's worse. Hang on. Other direction. I'm trying to take some height out of the apoapsis and put it into the periapsis. This is about where I want it. So that looks good. We'll align to that node. Very, very slowly. This poor reaction wheel. We're asking so much of it. Okay, so we've got 412 meters per second left in these drop tanks. The drop tanks are definitely going to be suborbital by the time we drop them, and that's a good thing. They're not going to be littering up the orbit here. So that's absolutely wonderful, and we've still got about 2,100 meters per second in this. We've got a lot. Like I said, this thing's overbuilt, and that's absolutely fine. So let's warp on forward a ways here. And we can see that this is definitely drifting on us. That's absolutely expected and completely and totally fine. So we'll physics warp forward here. There we go. We're in a much better attitude now. Not quite where we want to be, though. Now we're about where we want to be. But now we're only about 10 seconds away from this burn starting. So let's just wait this out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1... 0, mark. Okay, let's pull that apoapsis right on down. Everything's looking good on that. We'll do our actual deorbit next episode. I want to just get this last little bit here. Okay, we're very, very close at this point. 0.2 meters per second. This is close enough. Okay, we'll just leave it here for now. So that looks good. And at this point, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to need to definitely wait until this is on the day side, and then we'll bring this on down. Like I said, I think we'll bring it down the first time. We'll bring it down to, and I'm just making a save here. We'll bring it down without cheats enabled and hope that we don't have any Kraken issues. If we have any Kraken issues, we can bring it down a second time with cheats enabled to block crash damage. I just don't know how close we're going to get to this, and that's what we need to figure out. And whether we're going to have any Kraken issues with these wheels as well. So we'll see. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge, STL, Rornaz, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.